Because my parents have always favored my sister over me, I decided to cut ties with them. A year later, I'm engaged and got confused by my sister's sudden apology. I'm a 28-year-old woman. I've always felt like the black sheep of the family. My 32-year-old sister Natalie was the golden child who dominated our parents' attention throughout my childhood, with her perfect grades and athletic achievements. I was a clumsy and shy child who struggled to fit in at school and never felt like I was meeting expectations at home. Our parents, including my 60-year-old father, always made it clear that Natalie was their favorite. While they criticized everything I did, they constantly praised Natalie. When I got B's on tests, they'd ask why they weren't A's, and when I came in second in competitions, they'd ask why I couldn't get first like Natalie. Growing up, I remember countless incidents that highlighted this favoritism. When I was 8, I spent weeks working on a science fair project about plant growth. I was so proud of my little bean sprouts and the colorful poster I'd made. But on presentation day, at school, my parents didn't show up. They went to Natalie's soccer game instead. While other kids' parents took photos and celebrated, I stood there alone trying not to cry. Meanwhile, Natalie could do no wrong in their eyes. When she was 16, she got caught shoplifting cosmetics at the mall. Instead of punishing her, they made excuses about peer pressure and teenage rebellion. They even bought her the makeup she tried to steal so she wouldn't feel the need to do it again. If I had done something like that, I'm sure I would have been punished for life. The worst part was that Natalie joined in on the contempt. She'd make nasty comments about my appearance and my social life, knowing our parents would dismiss it as sisterly teasing. When I was 13, she convinced me to sneak into a party. When we got caught, she told our parents it was all my idea and that I had pressured her into it. I got grounded for a month while Natalie just got a talking to. That one hurt especially because it was one of the few times Natalie had actually invited me to do something with her. I thought we might finally bond as sisters, but she just wanted a fall guy if something went wrong. After that, I completely gave up trying to build a relationship with her. As we grew older, the favoritism became even more obvious. Our parents paid for all of Natalie's Ivy League college education, but I had to take out loans for state school. They bought her a car for her birthday but only gave me a $50 gift card. Holidays and family gatherings always revolved around Natalie. I still remember my high school graduation. I worked so hard to become valedictorian, something neither of our parents had achieved. I thought finally they'd be proud, but during my speech, Mom was looking at her phone and Dad was checking his watch. Later, when friends' families were taking photos and celebrating, our parents tried to rush me home because Natalie had a dance recital that night. Still, I desperately tried to earn their approval. Since sports were Natalie's territory, I threw myself into academics. I joined every club and spent countless hours volunteering, hoping they'd notice my dedication. But it was never enough. I graduated with honors and landed a great job at a top marketing firm, but they barely acknowledged it. Yet when Natalie got promoted, they threw a huge party. It was like I was invisible. At 22, there was a moment when I thought things might change when I won a national award for a marketing campaign I developed. It was a big deal in the industry, and I even got interviewed by the local news station. For the first time, my parents seemed impressed and took me to dinner, saying they were proud. I felt on top of the world, but the joy was short-lived. At dinner, the conversation quickly shifted to Natalie's recent engagement and wedding plans. Mom spent the rest of the evening showing wedding dress photos on her phone and talking about floral arrangements. My award was forgotten, and what I foolishly hoped would be lasting recognition became just another fleeting moment. The defining moment came at a family dinner last month. Natalie announced she was pregnant with her first child, and our parents were over the moon, talking about what a wonderful mother she'd be. Then Mom turned to me and said, "Well, you better hurry up and find a man if you don't want to fall behind." Everyone laughed like it was the best joke ever. That comment hit especially hard because I'd recently gone through a painful breakup. I'd been dating someone for 2 years and thought he might be the one. But he suddenly ended things, saying he couldn't see a future with me. I was devastated and had confided in Mom about it. Having her throw it in my face in front of everyone felt like such a betrayal. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I broke down crying. In that moment, I realized that nothing would ever be enough for them. I would forever be the disappointment, the stand-in when Natalie wasn't around. Years of trying to prove my self-worth, of swallowing pain and resentment, came crashing down on me all at once. When I returned to the table, I calmly told my family I was done trying to earn their love and respect. I said I wouldn't be attending any more family gatherings, and wouldn't speak to them, except when absolutely necessary. They looked stunned, as if they couldn't understand why I'd feel this way. Dad even had the audacity to say I was being dramatic and needed to learn how to take a joke. Natalie rolled her eyes and mumbled something about how you always try to keep everything to yourself. Mom just sat there looking bewildered, as if she couldn't understand why her harmless comment had hurt me so much. It was clear they either had no understanding or no interest in how much pain I'd experienced over the years. Since then, I haven't spoken to any of them despite numerous calls and messages. Natalie left voicemails, saying I was selfish for ruining her special moment and should apologize to everyone. Mom keeps trying to guilt me about tearing the family apart. Dad sent emails saying I need to get over it and stop acting childish. Their reactions only confirmed what I'd always suspected, that my feelings didn't matter to them. They cared more about maintaining the image of a perfect family than addressing the real issues between us. It was always about keeping up appearances, never about real connection or support. It's been about a month since I cut contact with my family, and a lot has happened. The week after our estrangement, my family's attempts to contact me intensified. My parents left increasingly angry voicemails about stopping this childish behavior and threatened to show up at my apartment. Natalie kept sending passive-aggressive messages about how I was tearing the family apart and breaking our parents' hearts. One particularly hurtful message from Natalie stood out. She wrote, "Why are you always so jealous of me? It's not my fault Mom and Dad love me more. Maybe if you tried harder to be more like me, they would have actually wanted you around." Reading those words felt like a punch to the gut, but it reaffirmed my need to distance myself from their toxicity. I stayed firm in my no-contact stance, which seemed to drive them even more crazy. Mom started leaving tearful messages about how she couldn't sleep because she was so worried about me. Dad's messages became more threatening, saying things like, "You can't hide from your family forever. We'll find you." Their behavior brought back so many painful memories from my childhood. I remembered how they'd used similar tactics whenever I tried to assert myself or set boundaries as a kid. They'd guilt trip and make vague threats until I did what they wanted. It was a pattern I'd lived with for so long, I'd almost forgotten how manipulative it was. Things reached a crisis point about 3 weeks ago. I came home from work to find my parents and Natalie waiting outside my building. I was shocked. They live over 2 hours away and had never visited before. The fact that they'd come so far uninvited felt like a massive violation of my boundaries. They immediately started trying to guilt-trip me. Mom was dramatically crying about how I was killing her by pushing them away, and Dad kept demanding to know who had poisoned me against the family. Natalie just stood there with a smug expression, occasionally chiming in about how unreasonable I was being. I calmly but firmly told them to leave. When they wouldn't move, I warned them I'd call the police if they didn't leave. Dad scoffed, saying, "You wouldn't dare call the cops on your own family." So I pulled out my phone right in front of them and dialed 911. I'll never forget their faces when they realized I was serious. Mom's tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of shock and anger. Dad's face turned red, and for a moment, I was afraid he might actually try to grab the phone from me. Natalie's smug expression faltered, turning into something almost like respect. They left sullenly before the police arrived, but not before Mom wailed about how I was dead to her and Dad growled something under his breath. Natalie didn't say anything, just gave me a long, unreadable look before following our parents to the car. After this confrontation, I was shaken but also felt strangely empowered. For the first time, I'd stood firm against their manipulation tactics. I'd always been the family peacekeeper, the one who compromised to keep everyone happy. Standing up to them like this was terrifying, but exhilarating. I took some additional measures to protect myself. I changed my phone number, blocked them on social media, and even explained the situation to my boss and coworkers in case my family showed up at work. A few days later, I received an email from my aunt, Mom's sister. She said the family was very concerned about my unstable behavior and urged me to seek professional help. Reading between the lines, it was clear my parents had concocted some story about me having a mental breakdown or something. It hurt to realize they'd chosen to paint me as crazy rather than acknowledge their role in our dysfunctional relationship, but I guess I should have expected it. They'd always been good at rewriting history to fit their narrative. I replied to my aunt, explaining my side of things. I told her about the years of favoritism, emotional abuse, and neglect, sharing specific incidents like the science fair and high school graduation. I explained how the constant comparisons and criticism with Natalie had eaten away at my self-esteem over the years. My aunt's response surprised me. She said she'd always suspected something was wrong between me and my parents but hadn't realized how serious it was. She apologized for not noticing sooner and offered her support if I needed it. It was a small gesture, but having a family member finally validate my experiences meant so much. My aunt and I have been talking regularly, and building an adult relationship with her has been healing. As for the family, I am still in contact with them. I'm processing everything with a therapist and working on establishing healthy boundaries. The holidays and times when their absence feels strongest are particularly challenging. Some days I miss them terribly and question my decision. I miss family game nights, inside jokes, and the comfort of having people who know your whole life story. But then I remember all the pain and damage that came with those good memories, and I know I made the right choice for my mental health. I'm slowly building a support network of friends who feel more like family than my biological relatives ever did. I'm rediscovering hobbies and interests I'd given up because my parents didn't approve. For the first time in my life, I'm starting to discover who I am away from my family's expectations. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm focusing on taking care of myself and building a life with people who truly care about me. My relationship with my aunt has grown stronger, and we talk every couple of weeks. She's become a source of support. I didn't even know I needed. She's shared some insights about my parents' behavior, like how Mom always felt anxious and competitive with her sisters. My aunt is helping me understand how our family's dysfunction has been passed down through generations. Through these conversations, I've started piecing together a more complete picture of our family history. Apparently, my grandmother was also very critical and played favorites with her children. Mom was like Natalie in her family, always trying to prove her worth and earn approval. It doesn't excuse her behavior toward me, but it helps explain some patterns. About 2 months ago, I received an unexpected email from Natalie. The subject line was, "I'm sorry," which immediately put me on guard. The email itself was long and rambling, but essentially she said she'd been reflecting since our estrangement and realized how badly she treated me over the years. She talked about feeling intense pressure from our parents to be perfect and projecting her insecurities onto me. He acknowledged specific incidents where he had hurt or betrayed me, including the party incident. Natalie also shared things I hadn't known. She wrote that she'd always been jealous of my intelligence and creativity, areas where she felt she couldn't compete. She admitted to sabotaging some of my achievements out of jealousy, like deliberately spilling water on an art project I was working on for a high school competition. Reading her confession stirred up complex emotions. On one hand, her finally acknowledging the harm she caused validated my experiences. But it also reopened old wounds I thought were starting to heal. Part of me wanted to believe her, but I've become cautious. I was wary of getting pulled back into family drama. I took some time to think before responding. I told Natalie I appreciated her apology but wasn't ready to rebuild our relationship. I explained that I needed more time and space. Her response was surprisingly mature. She said she understood and respected my boundaries, and shared that she'd started therapy herself. It gave me a glimmer of hope that she might genuinely be trying to change. As for our parents, there hasn't been direct contact in months, but my aunt says they're asking about me more frequently. Mom has apparently been hinting about wanting to reconnect, but Dad is still angry about the police incident. I have mixed feelings about the possibility of resuming contact with them. On one hand, I miss my family. Some days I get the urge to call Mom when something good happens at work or in my personal life. But then I remember all the times she dismissed or belittled my achievements, and the urge fades. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time and focusing on building a fulfilling life outside my birth family. I've returned to painting, which I loved as a child but was discouraged from because my parents said it was a waste of time. Being able to express myself creatively without fear of criticism has been incredibly healing. As I continue this journey of self-discovery and healing, I'm learning to trust my judgment and prioritize my happiness. It's a process, and I still have days where I battle guilt and doubt, but overall I feel I'm moving in a positive direction. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, though I know there's still a long road ahead in this healing journey. The thought of reconciliation with my family still feels heavy, and I'm not sure if it will ever happen. For now, I'm focusing on my upcoming marriage to Brandon and the family we'll create together. I'm determined to break the cycle of favoritism and emotional manipulation, ensuring any future children we might have feel unconditionally loved and supported. It's been a year since our wedding. Brandon and I bought a small house in a quiet residential area of town. I was deeply touched by his kindness in setting up a corner of our spacious living room as my art space. "I want you to express your talent to your heart's content here," he said, giving me an easel and art supplies as a birthday present. Last week, something unexpected happened. While I was drawing at a nearby cafe, Natalie suddenly appeared. She had lost a lot of weight and had lost her former glow. "Hey, can we talk?" She approached hesitantly. Natalie confided that she had been experiencing serious postpartum depression. She shared how she'd been beating herself up about not being a perfect mother, which led her to reflect on her own life of being pressured to be perfect since childhood. "You were actually the strong one. You had the courage to live your own life." Her words no longer carried their former sarcasm or superiority. Our parents are actually starting to show signs of change too. Dad continues to work part-time at construction sites after retirement. A colleague from the same office where I used to work told me to be proud of my daughter back then, which seemed to make me think a bit. Mom recently received an invitation to my art exhibition through my aunt. She quietly came to the venue and viewed my paintings from a distance. Later, my aunt shared Mom's reaction with me. We were such fools for denying our daughter's world. She said that tearfully. Next month, Brandon and I are expecting our first child. We decided to invite Natalie and her daughter to the baby shower. The invitation for our parents is still in my desk drawer. I haven't decided whether to send it yet. But I don't feel the same pain as before. I remember what my aunt told me: we can't change the past, but we can choose our future. Now, from my studio window, I can see the colorful flowers blooming in the garden. The flowers that Brandon helped plant, saying, "Let's make this garden as beautiful as your paintings." Among them are violets, which were Grandpa's favorites. Everyone has the right to find their own place to bloom. I believe so. I hope all of you reading this story will be able to make your own flowers bloom too.